Hello, and welcome to the Building Youth Apprenticeship Programs through Strategic Workforce Partnerships. This webinar is brought to you by the Supply Chain Automation Workforce Hub, a U.S. Department of Labor apprenticeship intermediary designed to be a one-stop solution for recruiting and training skilled workers in supply chain automation. My name is Kelly Middleton Banks, Senior Director of Programs and Initiatives at the National Association of Workforce Boards. I'm joined by my colleague, Jan Bray, Senior Advisor at the National Association of Workforce Boards. Today's objectives are to take a little time on understanding what defines youth apprenticeship programs. We'll also take time on understanding how to create effective and efficient youth apprenticeship programs for employers and youth. My colleague and I will provide some insights into effective collaboration between apprenticeship sponsors and workforce development boards. We'll also have some information and conversation from an employer who is engaging in apprenticeship. And last but not least, we'll share some resources and key takeaways to aid in the expansion and support of youth apprenticeship programs. For this webinar, the agenda is to set the stage and provide some information on the introduction to youth apprenticeship. We'll then look to youth apprenticeship in action, where we'll have a conversation from Sunrock Corporation and how they're engaging in apprenticeship. Sunrock is a construction and manufacturer headquartered in Utah. We'll then move into some insights and key takeaways, and then last, share some resources. So when thinking about setting the stage and the introduction to youth apprenticeship, we want to provide some general landscape of the apprenticeship and how that impacts our youth apprenticeship programming. And now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Jan Bray.
Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, a youth apprenticeship is basically part of the overall registered apprenticeship initiative. And we're seeing a rising demand and increased need for skilled labor across the country in all sectors of the economy. And so that apprenticeship is one way to meet that rising demand. We're seeing in state government across the country increase in legislation and policies that are supporting the use of apprenticeships, the CHIP Act, the Infrastructure Act at the federal level, the Restructuring Act at the House and Senate as they're drafting more legislation, a number of states that are putting together legislation, again, to support the initiatives and to provide funding on apprenticeship, including youth apprenticeship. The growing emphasis on diversity and inclusion has impacted apprenticeships as well. More and more apprenticeships and youth apprenticeships are being utilized to serve and to bring into the education and training sector underrepresented populations. And then, of course, the use of new technologies, which are changing the knowledge and the skills needed by employers, changing the scope of the occupations and therefore the curricula. And how do you help young people learn those skills? It's not just by sitting in a classroom, but actually experiencing it in the on the job, in the place of employment. So the apprenticeship programs are an excellent avenue for helping to align education and training to the evolving needs of the workplace. So Kelly, let's move on. So youth apprenticeship programs. A youth apprenticeship program serves people who are technically between the age of 16 and 24. Many of them, an increasing number of them, are really focusing on youth that are in high school or are of high school age but out of school youth. The requirement and the criteria for a youth apprenticeship program very similar to a registered apprenticeship program. It provides technical classroom instruction, or RTI, and paid work experience. And what's unique about youth apprenticeship and is really being seen as very important is it is incorporating instruction on, how to decide career development, what's your career pathway, as well as those essential workplace skills, communication, time management, organization, leadership. Those are being incorporated in the RTI as well as the on-the-job training for youth apprenticeship programs. Kelly, let's move on. All right, and just as, again, we were saying that for registered apprenticeship, youth apprenticeship program has some very specific and principles that guide them for it. These were put out by the Partnership to Advance Youth Apprenticeships, PIA. And so youth apprenticeship programs should be career-oriented. It's structured around the knowledge and skills and competencies that lead to careers. It helps young people as they're going through the program also determine, not only am I getting paid while I do this, but I'm figuring out, is this the real direction I want, or is there a different branch that I need to go through? So it's very career-oriented. It's accessible to every student. This again goes to the equity and that's in our education system, in our labor market. Youth apprenticeship addresses this as well. It also the learning leads to post-secondary credentials and transferable college credit. So if I'm a young person in high school and I'm in a youth apprenticeship program, I am getting college credit at the same time for many of the things that I take because there's partnerships and they work closely together. The design of a youth apprenticeship program is done collaboratively with industry and with education. And so you really are recognizing the value. The learning can be changed based on the industry sector that they're working on. And the accountability systems, it really helps to keep that student on track to what they should be doing, the direction they should be going as they are learning. It also helps the employer stay on track as to what the purpose of the apprenticeship program is. So it really creates a very good partnership, and it's very transparent for both the student and the employer to reach the program outcomes. Next slide. I'll give it to you, Kelly.
Thanks so much, Jan, for walking us through the basics of a youth apprenticeship and the principles for high quality youth apprenticeship. I'd like to touch shortly on workforce development boards and how they support not only a registered apprenticeship for adults, but also for youth. So when looking at workforce development boards, they're part of the apprenticeship system that can provide additional support and resources as you look to establish and stand up your apprenticeship programs. When thinking about youth and how you can support your youth apprenticeship programs, workforce development boards can provide support to apprentices by promoting the apprenticeship program that you are establishing. They can help support the development of related training and instruction. They can also provide support on on-the-job training resources, supportive services, and wraparound supports that are critical for the success of youth apprentices and apprenticeship programs. And they can also help with recruitment and screening. So workforce development boards can be a vital partner as you look to stand up and establish your apprenticeship programs. And you'll hear a little later how a corporation has worked with their local workforce agency to establish a successful youth apprenticeship program. When thinking about the benefits of youth apprenticeship, one of the things that you can look to is how youth apprentices can acquire customized training to ensure employees develop the right skills. As you're an employer, looking to ensure that the employees that you're bringing on board have the necessary skills and support. It also helps your employers to create a pipeline for diverse and skilled employees. Youth apprentices are a part of that conversation and enables you to be able to tap into that talent pipeline much sooner than you would in other instances. It also helps lower the recruiting costs and improve employee retention and reduce turnover. And as an employer, those are all critical pieces to your human resources strategy and ultimately meeting your workforce demands. Through youth apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs, you can access state and federal incentives through your registered apprenticeship programming. And last but not least, you can earn national recognition and visibility. As you establish your youth apprenticeship program or your registered apprenticeship program, it allows for you to be able to have an elevated view for your workforce needs, as well as being seen as a leader in the apprenticeship space. So now I'd like to turn it over to Jan Bray, who will touch a little bit about our guest speakers we have.
So we wanted, as part of this, to really show real life experiences. And we were very fortunate to get two engaging individuals from Sunrock Corporation, which is an construction and materials company, construction services and materials company in the Intermountain West area there, I think in 5 or 6 states out there. And so we're very fortunate to have a conversation with Jake Hinckley, the Director of Talent Acquisition and Workforce Development, and Bill Gerritsen, who's the Area Equipment Superintendent, who actually is supervising a lot of the apprentices in Idaho. They were willing to take the time and share with us their experiences, why they got into building a youth apprenticeship program, and lessons that are learned. So it's very informative, and we hope you enjoy watching this. Welcome, gentlemen. Really thankful that you have agreed to spend some time and share with us your thinking and your experiences about youth apprenticeships. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. Let me just, Jake Hinckley, who is the Director of Talent Acquisition, but also looks at workforce development in general for Sunrock, and Bill Gerritsen, who is officially the area equipment superintendent, but I've also been told he's the man, myth, and legend. So, so in other words, he's the man. So we have two very important people here, and we really wanted to share during Youth Apprenticeship Week the experiences you've had, the lessons you've learned, and help other employers learn from you. So let me, as we get started, let me ask you, Sunrock, what is it? What does it do? I know you're in Idaho, by the way. We need to let listeners know you're in Idaho. But what does Sunrock do? And then, Jay, how did you begin to get into youth apprenticeship? What led you to that?
Yeah, and so I guess I'll start in terms of Sunrock. So Sunrock is part of a larger Clyde family of companies, really a construction group of companies. There's 7 subsidiary companies. Sunrock is one of those companies underneath that Clyde umbrella. Clyde has been around for almost 100 years, and they, we do all types of construction-related services. So we do underground utility work, so horizontal construction, a lot of earth moving. We have our materials group where we produce and manufacture and supply concrete and asphalt. We have a masonry block plant that produces, oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting a call, just a second. There we go. And that produces masonry blocks. And then obviously we have Bill's team, which is our kind of equipment and diesel mechanics, which is really the backbone of everything we do. Because if all those pieces of equipment aren't running, then we can't do anything on any of our job sites or anything. And so, but because of that, I mean, Sunrock is a heavy hitter. We work in most Western states. Our headquarters are in Utah, but we have a lot of offices throughout Idaho. We do work in Nevada, Wyoming, Arizona, but a growing company. We have about 1,600 employees, and just one of the heavy hitters, I would say, in the construction space, and growing like crazy. And so, and then just how the whole apprenticeship program happened is in my earlier life, I was actually an educator for 16 years. And so at the high school level. And so I was a principal, I was a teacher, and then ended up pivoting, and through a lot of different things, ended up in construction, but spent a lot of time working with CTE teachers and counselors on helping students who weren't on track and didn't want to go the 4-year college degree route. And my big thing as an educator is you need to look for some opportunity to continue your education after high school. And that doesn't look the same for everybody. And in fact, if you look at the data, only 30% of the US population has a 4-year bachelor's degree. 70% do not. And yet, excuse me, in high schools, they seem to promote college over everything else. And I just have never subscribed to that as an educator. And so I was always, looking for alternative routes to education. So an apprenticeship is one of those things that I explored and try to help students get involved in those, because it is a way to continue your education. And the world is largely going to pay people largely based on their knowledge, skills, and abilities. And you can get those in a variety of ways, not just sitting in the classroom. And so, anyways, I came up to meet Bill when I first joined Sunrock, which was about 2.5 years ago. And we got to talking, and he is the one that actually brought it up and just said, I've always wanted to do an apprenticeship program. And I said, well, let's do it. And so that's really how it came about. I said, I'll handle all the paperwork and get all that worked out. So I started making connections with people in Idaho. And then from there, Bill has just taken with it and run with it, he and Jesse. And that's probably a good segue over to having, Bill talk about his experience with that. But anyways, that's how our apprenticeship program came about. And we're still in our infancy, and ask us in 3 to 5 years where we're at. But so far, it looks good.
No, that's great. Good background. We'll have to talk about CT at some point. So Bill, what made you get into think about youth apprenticeship, and did you have to readjust what you were doing in terms of training as you work with the youth?
A little. So the backstory for me was we used an application program. It was an online. All of our applicants would come in online. I don't actually hire and control the teams. I manage the shops, and I let the shop supervisors manage their own teams. They do the hiring, but I kind of oversee and look at their applicants and whatnot. And I had a shop up here. We had 13 applicants apply, and we were shorthanded. We needed guys, and he had rejected all 13 for one reason or another. And so I started reviewing them all. And there was a couple that had legitimate reasons, but probably, I want to say 11 out of the 13 were rejected for just no experience. And so it started the conversation. Well, they're applying for this job because they want to do it, but we're saying, no, we don't want them because they just don't have the experience to do this kind of work or the tooling. And this is about 3-4 years ago. And so we tossed around ideas back and forth. When Jake come on with Sunrock, started having the conversation with him, and he had the knowledge and stuff to start leading me down the right roads to make it happen. Originally, our plan was we were looking at 18 years and older, and with Jake, we were able to hook up with IBE, hook up with a couple of local schools, and started reevaluating what we wanted and how we're going to be able to teach. The one thing that we're doing is we're trying to, we'd love to have a lot more interns, but we're trying to limit just 1 or 2 per location so that we make sure that they've got the supervision, the training, the teaching that we can do and still do our daily task.
So how has the experience gone so far?
It's been going amazing. Like we've spoken in the past, we kind of set it up to where we're working with the schools. We're going down. We're part of some of their TAC committees and stuff at different schools. And then we're working with the teachers and their counselors to identify the students that would best fit our industry. And then we're having them do a 1-week job shadow. It's an unpaid job shadow, so they can come in and see if this is what they want to do. And then we roll them into, we call it a semester of internship. We'll pay them for 3 months as an intern. And our thought process on that is, with 3 months, they're going to see 80 to 90% of what we actually do. And we inform the kids right out the get-go that it's a 3-month interview for them as well as us. Make sure that this is what they want. We definitely don't want to bring somebody in and have them decide relatively quickly that this is not the line of work I want to go into. And then once we get through the 3-month internship, then we offer them our apprenticeship program. And that's kind of a hybrid program. It's kind of hours and skills based, and it's somewhere between 2 to 3 years and about 6,000 hours.
Right, so when they finish high school, they're not necessarily finished with the apprenticeship program, they continue it on beyond.
Yes, and we've kind of we kind of set some, what's the best way, we keep a carrot out in front of them all the way through. There's we actually do provide some tooling with them. The tools in the toolbox that we provide, they sign a little letter saying that those are Sunrock property for the first 2 years. So they have to be with us for 2 years before we hand that over to them. And then the next little carrot in there is, hopefully once they're here for 2 years, they get the tools. Now they're hopefully somewhere between 6 to 8 months to a year away from actually getting the accredited apprenticeship. First carrots start out, the internship, because that carrot's do you want the apprenticeship program? So that's, a 3-month carrot. And then so our whole kind of philosophy was keep a goal out in front of them that they can achieve it, an achievable goal. But our biggest fear was we just didn't want to be a stepping stone. We didn't want to bring kids in and just be a constant rotation of them. And then they go out and they go off to another competitor or whatnot. So we tried to keep little things out. Depending on the individual, we've got enough carrots out there to run it out to about a 5-year process. And our philosophy is once they've been with us 5 years, they're vested with the company. Our benefits package is amazing, and they're taking advantage of all the benefits we offer, and hopefully we've developed a good employee.
And let me just tack on a few things that I really like what Bill and his team have done is that they are engaged with the local school districts, Boise and Cuna, to name a few. They have some pretty robust diesel mechanic programs, but they're over there quite a bit. They're donating equipment. They're providing, like Bill said, they're sitting on these advisory boards. They're there working with those teachers. The nice thing about that is that the teachers of these programs now know them. And so they're steering some of their best students to us because they know who they are. And so that helps us pick the cream of the crop. And so they're getting people into our program. And then the other thing that Bill did, and that he mentioned this toolkit that we provide, one of the barriers to entry for a diesel mechanic is the tooling. And so it's about between $2,000 and $3,000 worth of tools that we front load to these apprentices. And like Bill said, that if they complete about the first 2 years of the program, then we then gift them those tools, they become theirs. And then we have a tool allowance that goes every paycheck, they get a little bit extra money to buy tools so they can keep adding to their tool base. And that's just an amazing thing. And Bill negotiated with his tool supplier to sell us the tools at cost. And so there's a little discount there. And then in addition to that, there's several other programs. Should this apprentice want to go to, CWI, College of Western Idaho, to their diesel mechanic program, to go through that certification program, there's some funding that they can secure that will help pay for some or most of that education. And so there's just things that we've structured to really help eliminate these barriers to entry into this career. Because it is a career and we want to get kids in it and spend time with, and then they get mentored by some of the best in the business who are just passionate about diesel mechanics. And you're just going to learn so much quicker with a mentor. And that's, one of the oldest and most impactful education systems, which is a mentor apprentice program. It's so impactful that Star Wars even stole it. And that's how they train like Sith Lords. And so you know that there's always an apprentice, in there. And so we're just following or Darth Vader, I guess, maybe not on the dark side, but that's what we're doing. So
that's good. I like that. So let me ask, especially Bill, that the employers, those who are serving as mentors, supervisors, your other full-time employees. Have they enjoyed having the apprentices there? Are they giving, because it takes extra time and effort on their.
So there was a lot of discussion. There was a lot of Not sure, because once again, we still have a job to do. We still have our daily duties we got to do. And so there was a lot of just uncertainty to begin with. But I'll be honest with you, it is actually what it has done is it had made some of my already top-notch guys even better. And by being a mentor, because when we mentor them, we actually don't just put them with one individual. We try and make sure that they're working with everybody in the shop. So some of these interns and apprentices may work with 3 or 4 different mechanics throughout the day. What it has actually done is it's brought some of my mediocre guys, when they're teaching these kids something, they're realizing some of the things they were doing, how they can do it better. So it's actually brought the skill set of my employees up 1 to 3 levels in their skills, just because they're training it, and they don't want to train somebody's. We don't want to train shortcuts and stuff. We want to train these individuals the correct way, because we want to. At some point, they're going to be running our shops, and we want to make sure that everything is done correctly. So it was an unforeseen benefit that I wasn't ready for, that it actually made my guys better than they were before, which before we started this, I'd have told you that it was impossible. I had one of those guys, I'd stand behind my guys to the end of the earth, that they were already the best. But believe it or not, it's made them better having to be a teacher or a mentor.
That is great. I love that. I hadn't thought about that either. There's a real benefit to a company, that it's that intangible, to some extent, benefit that people don't think about. So that's a really good point there. Yeah.
And one thing I just want to add to this is Bill did it the right way. As he's deciding to do this, first he's like, I got to get buy-in from my people. And so for any company that wants to start doing this, what Bill did is he went around to each of the shops and said, hey, here's this program, this apprenticeship program that we could potentially do. Here's what it would look like. Here's the structure. And then, presented it. And then he allowed for discussion and got buy-in and then agreement from all of his people before he signed in to do it. And so it wasn't Bill coming in saying, hey, I want to push this program onto you. He messaged it in a way that created the buy-in, and they said, yes, we agree to do this and we will support this. And that was just a huge step that I've patterned as we're working with our other shops in other states now to do the similar apprenticeship program, is that I always let the shop superintendent, the equipment superintendent know, hey, go get the buy-in first, because if your people aren't on board, this is not going to work. And so it really, Bill has created the pattern for how we're rolling this out in different states.
Yeah, that's good. So you are rolling it out across Sunrock.
Yep.
That's great. That is really good to hear. So let me ask, and it sort of leads into one of my last questions. This has been really interesting. So what other advice? That's one piece of advice. Is there other advice you'd give to a company as they consider bringing in youth apprenticeships or adding that to their workforce development program?
I wish we'd have done it a long time ago, to be honest with you. If, like Jake said, we're still in our kind of infancy of it. We need 3 to 5 years under our belt to tell you it's going to work. But from what I can see right now, it's we just started this. Our first actual apprentice would have been September of 2023. We've got 9 kind of shops over here in Idaho, and we currently have 7 enrolled. I've got, with the schools, I've probably got a backlog of another 30 that I wish I could bring on. I can't at the moment. But really, for me, it was the baby steps. It was the job shadows. It was the internship. For a couple of reasons. One, it allowed us to interview and develop our skills and our training and how we were going to teach. It allowed us to grow into it, but it also allowed the students, it allowed us to kind of key in on the ones that our particular line of the maintenance industry is going to really, they're more focused and they want to do this particular type of work. And so really it was just the baby steps, the job shadows. Out of the 7 that we've got, we probably did 19 or 21 job shadows to get these 7 individuals.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. It keeps you from spending a lot of time and effort on people who are not either truly interested or really, sometimes the interest and the ability don't connect at all. So,
well, one of the things I did with my team and stuff that I asked them, and this is what I've presented to the schools as well, is I've got 48 mechanics in Idaho, and I asked every single one if what they're doing today as a mechanic is what they thought they were when they wanted to be a mechanic in high school. Is this what you thought you were going to be doing? I haven't had one tell me yes yet. So in the maintenance industry, there are so many different spokes and different avenues to take. That's the part working with the schools, is how do we identify the ones that our particular style of maintenance in this industry would cater to them. And really it was the schools, that the high schools and stuff, that suggested the job shadows. And so we just kind of incorporated all that, and it's helping us identify the ones most accurately suited to our industry.
yeah, no, that's, so I sort of, put it into bags of, boxes of onboarding, which is what that is onboarding, to make sure that, they're in the right place and you have the right people. And then it's buy-in from the company. And then of course it's having the right program and the mentorship as they go through. I think you guys have all the ingredients there, and it seems to be working well. I mean, this is a phenomenal what you guys are doing. I really love it. So, so I really do thank you for, I think we lost Jake, but yeah. Yeah, here he comes. Yeah, okay. So I really do thank you both for taking the time. I actually went a little longer than going to, because your story is so important and so good. So thank you, Jake. Thank you, Bill. So I hope you enjoyed that. I do want to say, before I get into the next slide, there are a number of videos that we have put out on this, on the Youth Apprenticeship website for Youth Apprenticeship Week, done by other organizations and employers that the National Association of Workforce Boards, the Supply Chain Automation Workforce Hub have worked with. That really show, the benefits of having a youth apprenticeship program. It's a great way, and there were also some videos of apprentices there. And so some good learnings that were there, and why they went into youth apprenticeship programs. So I encourage you all to look at those and to learn from them as well, especially listening to the apprentices. They're very exciting, and it sets them on their career pathway. And I think that's the most important thing that's there through work-based learning. And apprenticeships is the gold star of work-based learning. So some key things that we've learned, especially as you listen to the gentlemen, Jake and Bill from Sunrock, but we learned it from a lot of the employers that we have talked to. Onboarding strategies are critical to helping the youth understand. They need to understand what the program's about, but they also need to understand what it entails, what the expectations are, what kind of time it's going to take, and what it's going to lead to at the end. That's very important. And we heard that specifically from apprentices. Besides it's paid work, which was also a nice benefit to them, they need to know the why and the what. And so that's, as you start to work with youth apprentices, think about the onboarding strategies. At the same time, and it goes together sort of, the onboarding strategies and employee buy-in, the employees in your company, not only those who are going to serve as mentors or supervisors, but all of the employees who are going to be in contact with these apprentices need to understand what the program is, why it's important, and how they can help. I mean, I think if you, as you heard from the Sunrock video, it's the buy-in is critical, because now it's not just the mentors, it's everybody on the floor is trying to help these young people. They also said they learned from the program. There were things that were incorporated in the program, the competencies and the skills that they hadn't thought about. So they learned new strategies. So everybody won. So it's not just for the apprentices, the supervisor, the mentor, it's for everybody in your organization. And finally, a key takeaway is collaborate. It's not, with your local and state organizations. That includes your local workforce boards, your high school system, your education system. Very important. Sunrock, as you heard, works very closely with the high schools in which they are recruiting students from. Other local organizations, Catholic Charities USA, there's a Catholic Charities organization in just about every community across the country. So it's, working with them that they can help, especially with diversity and equity. So think beyond, your state workforce board, your state CTE directors, your local CTE directors. All of those can help you in collaborating to put together the program, to support the program, and to make sure that you have a successful experience, that your employees have a successful experience, and most importantly, that the youth do, because at the end of the day, as you heard from Sunrock, you benefit from it as an employer. Kelly, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Jen, and thank you for leading that conversation with Sunrock Corporation. It's always great to have a chance to hear directly from an employer how they're engaging in apprenticeship programs and how they're supporting youth to access opportunities in the workforce. So thank you so much. We want to just share a few resources to help you on your journey as you look to expand your registered apprenticeship programs and specifically your youth apprenticeship work. Apprenticeship.gov is a great opportunity and a great resource to access all things apprenticeship. So we've included 2 links, the general link to give you some of the key highlights for apprenticeship work and resources, but also specifically the link towards the youth apprenticeship resources. In addition to apprenticeship.gov, there's Workforce GPS that has multiple communities that will allow you to engage with other workforce agencies. There's some specific information there on youth apprenticeship, and so we've included that link. Next, we have the Partnership to Advance Youth Apprenticeships, or PIA, which is a collaborative that supports the expansion of opportunities for high school students for employment through apprenticeship. So great resources there, and we actually referenced their high quality principles for youth apprenticeship in our PowerPoint. In addition to PIA, there's the Youth Apprenticeship Intermediate Project led by Urban Institute with great resources and best practices on developing and sustaining apprenticeship programs for youth. And last but not least, for those of you who are looking for partners in this effort and looking to gather additional support for your apprenticeship work, workforce development boards are a local entity that can support you through your workforce demands and needs. And so we've included the Career One-Stop link for you to be able to identify your local workforce development board. Well, we highly recommend that you reach out to connect to your individual workforce development boards, since every workforce development board has a different strategic approach to how they support workforce efforts in their community. And they can be a great resource to you as you look to establish registered apprenticeship programs and those specifically focused on youth. I'd like to share our contact information here on this slide. Please feel free to reach out to either me or Jan if you have any additional questions in support of your apprenticeship efforts. We will gladly assist you. Also, I'd like to share the information for the Supply Chain Automation Workforce Hub, your one-stop solution to workforce needs and demands as you develop apprenticeship programs around manufacturing automation for supply chain. There's also a newsletter that you can sign up for with the Supply Chain Hub. So by all means, please feel free to reach out to the Supply Chain Automation Hub for any needs that you may have in supporting your workforce apprenticeship efforts. So we'd like to thank you for your time today, and we hope that you found this webinar to be helpful and informative as you explore your youth apprenticeship efforts. Jan, any last words?
No, just happy Youth Apprenticeship Week. I think it's great that we're going in this direction. And as Kelly said, she and I are here to help you. The National Association of Workforce Boards is always here to help. The Workforce Hub, Supply Chain Automation Hub is here to help. There's lots of intermediaries. So good luck. I mean, we're seeing positive results. So we're just excited about welcoming more people into the youth apprenticeship field.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great opportunity and day.
Thank you.